Hi there. Today we are going to revise the poem An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, written by Stephen Spender. This poem is from class 12th Flamingo book of CBSE. So let's start. At the onset, let me tell you the content of this video. We are first going to know something about the poet. Then I'll tell you the theme of the poem. We will read the summary of the poem and the figures of speech or poetic devices used in every line. I will also explain the difficult words. The poem is written by Stephen Spender. Let us know something about Stephen Spender. Stephen was an English poet and an essayist. He left University College, Oxford without taking a degree and went to Berlin in 1930. Spender took a keen interest in politics and declared himself to be a socialist and pacifist. Books by Spender include Poems of Dedication, The Edge of Being, The Creative Element, The Struggle of the Modern, and an autobiography, World Within World. In An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, he has concentrated on themes of social injustice and class inequalities. Let me first summarize the poem for you. This poem by Stephen Spender gives a vivid description of a school classroom in a slum and the children in the class. The faces of the children are dull. Their appearance shows that they are unwanted. The children have gloomy faces, their heads hanging low in sadness due to being poor. They have diseased bodies inherited from their parents and are victims of poverty. At the dim end of the room sits one child who has bright eyes which seem to dream of playing outside with squirrels. He is different from the others in the dim, dark room. Continuing with the summary. The walls of the classroom are dirty. People have donated different charts and images which have been put up on them. One of them is a picture of the great playwright Shakespeare. His head is bald and resembles the rising sun. The next poster is of the Tyrolese Valley, full of churches and flowers, which symbolizes the beautiful creations of nature. Another one is a map of the world. To these children, the world is not the one shown in these pictures, but it is the one they see out of the classroom window. They are trapped in the slums. Their future is dim and hopeless. They have a dark future as their options in life are limited and are covered with dismay. They are far away from the bright light of knowledge. Comprehending these pictures is beyond their abilities. They hit everyone, and for them, Shakespeare is a wicked man. As no one loves them, they dislike everyone. The desire for love and acceptance forces them to do crimes like stealing. The children are so skinny that their clothes are like a skin, and their skeleton is visible through them. This is due to lack of nutrition. They have worn looking glasses made of steel, which are cheap, heavy, and uncomfortable. Their chances of fulfilling their dreams and moving out have been further reduced by building bigger slums. Until they come out of the slums, they will never know what the world looks like. The government system which makes these slums is the cause for these people to live in them. The education system is such that it forces them to live in these slums. They are not given the right to dream beyond these slums. They have been restricted to the slums. The poet requests the authorities to allow these children to go out of these slums so that the maps on the walls of the classroom become a reality for them. They should be taken to the green fields rather than the dim slums. The sunny, warm sand of the beaches and the bright blue sky will instill a hunger for knowledge in their minds. Then They will absorb all of it. Then these children will become economically empowered. The poem ends with a powerful line. Those who make history are the ones who shine like the sun. Let us now understand the theme or the central idea of the poem. The poem written by Stephen Spender describes the social inequalities which are prevailing in the society. In the poem, he describes the condition of the students of an elementary school which is situated in a slum area. The poet wants to draw attention of everyone towards these kids so that their life can be improved and they may get trained to become good citizens rather than criminals. Although the poem is a sharp commentary on the striking divide between the classes of society, it ends on an optimistic note, believing that there still exist visionaries in society who will hearken to the cause of the less fortunate in our societies. Let us now begin with detailed explanation of the poem. I'll read a few lines, then explain the meaning of each line. I'll also explain the meaning of difficult words. This will be followed by the explanation of all the figures of speech and the poetic devices. Let me begin. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with her weighed down head, the paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from his desk. At back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game, in tree room other than his. Let's first understand the difficult words. Gusty waves means breezy winds. Pallor means pale or dull face. Stunted is someone who is not fully grown due to malnutrition. Gnarled is a word that means knotted or rough. Weeds is a word used for unwanted plants that grow on their own. Paper-seeming boy. This phrase means a boy who is very thin as a sheet of paper. Heir means successor. Now we will understand the meaning of each line. Let us now understand the meaning of these lines. The poet describes the children who study in an elementary school which is set up in a slum area. The poet says that the faces of children are dull and without any energy. They are not full of energy like other kids of their age. These children are compared to unwanted weed. Here, the writer wants to say that these children seem to be unwanted like the unwanted weeds which grow on their own in the fields. Their hair is not neatly done. It falls on their pale faces as if they have been torn apart. The children are untidy. They haven't combed their hair. Then, he describes a tall girl who seems to be burdened by poverty. Her head is bent, maybe because of tiredness or shame. There is another boy who is so weak and thin that he has been compared to a sheet of paper. The boy's eyes reflect greed and he wants to achieve everything. Then he describes another student who is physically disabled. The poet says that this boy is unlucky because he inherited a disease from his father due to which he has a deformed body. Instead of getting any facility from his father, he has received a disease in heritage. This disabled boy is sitting on his bench and is reciting his lesson. At the back of the class, in dim, dark area, was a small boy who was not visible to the poet as he was sitting in darkness. The poet could see his eyes, which were bright and full of a dream. He was not paying attention to the class. It seemed as if he was rather interested in playing with squirrels in the tree house. Let's understand the literary devices used in the lines. There is simile where the children are compared with rootless weed. The boy is called as paper-seeming boy. This is a metaphor. We see repetition in the very first line when the word far is repeated twice. Now I'll read the lines ahead. On sour cream walls, donations. Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn. Civilized dome, riding all cities. Belt, flowery, Tyrillus Valley. Open-handed map, awarding the world its world. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their futures painted with a fog. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. Far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. Let us understand the difficult words. Donations are things given or received in charity. Dawn means early morning. Civilized dome. Here it means rising sun at the horizon, which is in the shape of a dome, semicircle. Tyrillus Valley is a beautiful ice-free valley in Austria. Sealed means shut or locked. Lead here is referring to dark future of kids. Capes, a large piece of land that sticks out into the sea from the coast. Let's now understand the meaning of every line. I'm going to now explain these lines to you. The poet describes the walls of the school. They are cream in color, like the color of sour cream. This means that the walls are not clean. They have not been painted recently. The walls are covered with different charts and images that must have been donated by different people. There is a picture of Shakespeare on the wall. His head, which is bald, looks like the rising sun at the horizon. At the time of daybreak, the sun is rising at the horizon and is semicircular like a dome shape. It seems to be behind all the cities. There is a picture of the famous Tyrillus Valley, which has beautiful flowers. There is the image of a map which helps all in its own way. But for these children, the map of the world is irrelevant because the slum where they live is different from what is shown in the map. Their world is only what they see out of the window of the classroom. The slum. Their future is full of darkness. Their future is compared to a narrow street, which means that there is no wide scope available for their future growth. These children are far away from the radiant light of knowledge and education. Let's now understand the literary devices used in the above lines. There is metaphor in the sour cream walls. Walls are described to be dull as sour cream. These narrow streets sealed with a lead sky is metaphor where the future of the kids is described as limited. We see assonance in the repetition of the vowel sound E in the words belt, flowery, Tyrillus Valley. There is allusion when there is reference to well-known person or place. Here, the poet refers to Shakespeare's head, and in the next line he refers to Tyrillus Valley. In the last line that I read, there was repetition of the word far twice. Students, I am sure you are appreciating the poem and you are curious to know the lines ahead. Let me read ahead. Surely Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal. For lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes, from fog to endless night. On their slag heap, these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel, with mended glass like bottle bits on stones. All of their time and space are foggy slum. So blot their maps with slums as big as doom. Let's understand the difficult words first. Wicked, of course, means evil. Tempted means to persuade. Slyly means trickly or cunningly. Cramped means confined. Slack is for weak. Mended means repaired. Blot means to mark with a spot. And doom means disaster. Let's understand the meaning of every line in the next slide. I will now explain the lines to you. The poet further says that these children living in the slum area have faced so many hardships that they feel every other person to be their enemy. For them, Shakespeare is an evil man. They don't find the map to be a good thing. They were never liked or loved by anyone. Therefore, they hate almost everyone. Their desire of being loved by others forces them to steal. They live in small homes and they have started adjusting to it. Their life is going towards an endless night. This means that their future is full of darkness. These kids are so thin that one can easily see their bones through the thin layer of skin. Their skin is like the thin layer of cloth and the bones beneath are visible through the skin. These kids suffer from malnutrition. They wear spectacles which are made of steel. They are cheap and very uncomfortable. Even the lenses in the spectacles are repaired. The spectacles look like stones which have been repaired with pieces of glass sticking out of them. Here the poet tries to explain that these kids have to face so many hardships in their lives. As these slums are getting bigger, they will destroy the future of these children, and it is very difficult for such kids to escape from them. Let's understand the literary devices. The poet uses metaphor when he calls their homes like cramped holes. When the glasses are compared to bottle bits on stones, this is simile. In the phrase from fog, the sound of fur is repeated and therefore it is alliteration. I know we all are mesmerized by the way Stephen Spender has so sensitively touched on this delicate issue and made his reader think about it. Let me read the lines. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs break open till they break the town and show the children to green fields and make their world run azure on gold sands and let their tongues run naked into books, the white and green leaves open, history theirs whose language is the sun. Let us understand the two difficult words in this line. Catacombs means tomb or cemetery. Azure stands for deep blue color. Let's now understand the meaning of each line in the next slide. Well, if the first part of the poem was sensitive and broke our hearts, the last part of the poem made us feel optimistic. We feel that something can be done about these poor children from slum. The poet says that the government should take notice of the problems being faced by these kids. He urges them to change the life of these kids and make the world map a reality for them. There is a need to break the restrictions which are put on them due to poverty and lack of resources. He wants the governor and public to help these kids in achieving their dreams, as this will take them away from fog to azure sky. The poet here wants to say that in this way, the kids can be taken away from the darkness of their present to a bright future. He wants these kids to experience the sands and the beauty of nature, as this will lead to a desire of gaining knowledge. They will then go through the white and green leaves. Here, white leaves depict books and green leaves depict nature. This will then result in their progress and they will be able to paint a bright future for themselves. Let's understand the literary devices used in the last lines. Books and nature are expressed in form of white and green leaves. Thus, it is a metaphor. We see anaphora used in the word repetition in 2 consecutive lines. Run azure on gold sands, and the next line says, run naked into books. I hope you appreciated this sensitive poem and understood it thoroughly. Thank you so much for listening to me. Happy reading!